Hello, my name is Ashley Johnson, and I will be presenting on the implications of socioeconomic status on adolescent obesity. Adolescent obesity, what is it? Well, first let me start by defining a few key terms that will be pertinent for this presentation. Adolescence. This is the stage of a person's life between the ages of around 12 to 18 years old. There's some dispute as to the exact age of adolescence, but Rogers uses these ages, and they're more than suitable for the discussion on obesity and socioeconomic status. BMI, or body mass index. This is a person's weight in kilograms divided by the height in meters. This is not a precise measurement, but instead a general framework that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention uses as a baseline for healthy weights. Obesity. The Center for Disease Control defines the terms obese and overweight to be defined as being a weight greater than what is considered healthy by healthcare standards for height and gender. The CDC categorizes excessive adolescent weight in two separate categories based on the person's BMI. To be labeled overweight, a teen would be on the 85th to 95th percentile for BMI for their age and gender. Obesity is the more severe version of being overweight, and to be deemed this, an adolescent's BMI is higher than 95th percentile for age and gender. All right, well, which teens are at risk for becoming obese? There are many factors for becoming obese, but truly all of our teenagers are at risk, especially in the age of technology and our sedentary lifestyle. It's much easier for a teen to become overweight in the 21st century. But some teens have a much higher probability of becoming overweight or obese before adulthood. Children with genetic predispositions to being heavy. If parents of adolescents are overweight, the likelihood that the adolescent will be overweight is also very probable due to both genetics and overall lifestyle. Being a minority or having a single-parent family. This is due to cultural cooking practices as well as the overwhelming number of single parents trying to take care of their children while under economic duress. The U.S. Census Bureau states that 51% of African American children are only living with a single parent household. Teens in certain geographical locations. Without the ability to walk down the street or get something healthy at the grocery store, or the fear of violence if you go out past a certain time, it makes a person want to become more sedentary. The family also might live in a place where there's just very little space to walk around and be active outside. And finally, the principal factor in today's presentation, living in a socioeconomic status that is low in that type of home. All right. Let me test your knowledge. According to the CDC, the percentage of teens aged 12 to 19 that were overweight in the United States or obese in the United States in 2012 was A, 12%, B, 24%, C, 33%, or D, 45%. Believe it or not, the answer is C. 1/3 of our adolescents are over the healthy weight measurement. The role of socioeconomic status on American society. The American Psychological Association defines socioeconomic status as the combined measurement of someone's education, income, and occupation as a classification in today's financially forward society. A few noteworthy things to state about SES, or socioeconomic status, regarding adolescents is adolescents from low SES homes are more likely to have slower academic progress than those who aren't. It's also unfortunate to know that the rate of high school dropouts in a low-income family was 16% in 2007. This is really difficult because families who have low socioeconomic statuses usually tend to breed low socioeconomic status children to become adults. And finally, low socioeconomic status is correlated to high levels of economic stress in daily life. This puts emotional stress on the children that have no other option and have to live in that type of environment. Bigger, faster, stronger. Well, at least bigger. The clip on the left is a great depiction of how such a vicious cycle can occur in children and teens gaining weight. It's usually a gradual process, so many parents don't seem to realize it until it's too late. Next, you will see the first of two clips from the movie Super Size Me, made by Morgan Spurlock. The Surgeon General in this clip is going to speak about how society has made obesity an epidemic due to the overconsumption of food and drink.
I think that fast foods are a major contributor to this epidemic.
In 2000, Dr. David Satcher became the first Surgeon General to draw attention to the obesity crisis, declaring it a national epidemic.
Now remember, we're supersizing everything. You go to any place to buy, go to any fast food store, and they're trained to tell you to buy a bigger size. For 5 cents more, you can get the super size.
Federal government will define a piece of meat, 3 ounces of meat, as a sensible portion, and that looks like a deck of cards. Few people would be able to find this deck of cards if they were served a piece of meat, a steak, in a restaurant. It would probably be about 4 or 5 times the size. One typical bagel that one is eating that looks something like this is going to comprise 5 servings of bread. When fast food companies first opened, they generally introduced one size. For example, one size French fries when McDonald's first opened, called fries. That size fries is now called small, medium, large, and supersize. That original size is still here. It's got about 200 calories, but the supersize is going to pack in over 600 calories. When Burger King first opened, they had a 12-ounce small and a 16-ounce large. This 12 ounce is now kitty. The 16 ounce is now the small, the medium, the 32, and the 42. And this is across the board with all fast food places. Cars have introduced larger cup holders to accommodate those huge 7-Eleven double gulps, which are 64 ounces, a half gallon, and hold anywhere from 6 to 8.
Adolescents living in a low socioeconomic status household. They have more risks for obesity than the adolescent who's living in a high SES household. The specific risk factors pertaining to these low SES households are poor familial eating habits. This is a combination of culture. If you think about it, if cooking collard greens with bacon and lard, you really aren't going to reap the benefits of eating the greens you just ate. The problem is, this is the way someone probably was taught to cook when they were growing up, and it becomes a very difficult habit to break. The next thing is sheer convenience for eating habits. Many families don't have time to cook in this day and age. They might work shift work, or they might, only have a single parent household. So there's really not time to cook for, multiple people. Lower financial resources to get children involved in extracurricular activities. A family who's financially stable will be much more likely to be able to send their son or daughter off to soccer camp every summer and buy them all the equipment needed to play, much more than someone who's struggling to make ends meet each week. This makes it very difficult for a lot of children in low socioeconomic statuses to go and be active and do group play. Decreased amounts of parental guidance. Jose Escarce explains that the lack of parental guidance is not due to the lack of compassion towards their children, but rather an environmental issue. According to the U.S. Census, a single-parent home ratio has gone up from 17% in 1970 to 27% in 2012. That's a lot of children that when their parents are at work, you have to think are probably going home to no parent. As it was stated previously, the education level of those living in a low SES income is usually lower than high SES citizens. Even though most of us know what's good for us and what isn't, some people don't. The lack of health knowledge and correct portion sizes are huge factors in becoming obese. Geographic location can be a huge factor as to whether or not the residents have reasonable access to healthy foods also. Seeley, in 2010, spoke about an experimental focus group that she had started in New York City. This was with parents of children that attended a nonprofit after-school care program. The group focused on lack of healthy foods available in their own neighborhoods due to discrimination and poverty level. One group had all different types of grocery stores, and they had access to all different types of fresh fruits and vegetables, but the other ones didn't, and it was really hard for them to get their family healthy food that was at a reasonable price. adolescents living in a low SES home continued. The health issues regarding being overweight as an adolescent are staggering. Physical issues such as heart disease, diabetes, asthma, sleep apnea, and certain cancers can always be present. Psychological issues are also, a big thing. There's higher rates of depression. They can become victims of bullying, and then they really, have low self-esteem because of this. With the globalization in society's fast-paced lifestyle, the way in which we consume food has been altered to fit these ideologies. Food is pre-packaged, processed, canned, and frozen for instant gratification and convenience. As the time in the kitchen has dwindled, our children's waistlines have expanded, and we've lost precious moments to just spend time with our loved ones. We really are what we eat, and so are our children, so we need to make sure to take care of them too. The Super Size Me culture. This clip is the trailer to the movie Super Size Me. It explains how society has been bombarded with media and unhealthy foods and the way in which our society has really become this way.
You like food, Kentucky Fried Chicken and a Pizza Hut, a Pizza Hut, a Pizza Hut.
Everything's bigger in America. We've got the biggest cars, the biggest houses, the biggest companies, the biggest food, and finally, the biggest people. America has now become the fattest nation in the world. Congratulations. Nearly 100 million Americans are today either overweight or obese. That's more than 60% of all U.S. adults. Since 1980, the total number of overweight and obese Americans has doubled, with twice as many overweight children and 3 times as many overweight adolescents. The fattest state in America? Mississippi, where 1 in 4 people are obese. I grew up in West Virginia, currently the 3rd fattest state in America. When I was growing up, my mother cooked dinner every single day. Almost all my memories of her are in the kitchen. And we never ate out, only on those few rare special occasions. Today, families do it all the time, and they're paying for it, not only with their wallets, but with their waistlines. Obesity is now second only to smoking as a major cause of preventable death in America, with more than 400,000 deaths per year associated with related illnesses. In 2002, a few Americans got fed up with being overweight and did what we do best. They sued the bastards. Taking aim at the fast food companies and blaming them for their obesity and illnesses, a lawsuit was filed in New York on behalf of 2 teenage girls. One who is 14 years old, 4'10" and 170 pounds. The other, 19 years old, 5'6" and 270 pounds. The unthinkable had suddenly become reality. People were suing the Golden Arches for selling them food that most of us know isn't good for you to begin with. Yet each day, 1 in 4 Americans visits a fast food restaurant. And this hunger for fast food isn't just in America, it's happening on a global basis. McDonald's alone operates more than 30,000 joints in over 100 countries on 6 continents and feeds more than 46 million people worldwide every day. That's more than the entire population of Spain. In the United States alone, McDonald's accounts for 43% of the total fast food market. They're everywhere. Walmarts, airports, rest stops, gas stations, train stations, shopping malls, department stores, amusement parks, even hospitals. That's right, hospitals. At least you're close when the coronary kicks in. Lawyers for McDonald's call the suits frivolous, stating that the dangers of its food are universally known and that these kids can't show that their weight problems and health woes were caused solely by their McDiets. The judge states, however, that if lawyers for the teens can show that McDonald's intends for people to eat its food for every meal of every day and that doing so would be unreasonably dangerous, they may be able to state a claim. Are the food companies solely to blame for this epidemic? Where does personal responsibility stop and corporate responsibility begin? Is fast food really that bad for you?
I mean, what would happen if I ate nothing but McDonald's for 30 days straight? Would I suddenly be on the fast track to becoming an obese American? Would it be unreasonably dangerous? Let's find out. I'm ready.
Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. As a teen, I loved to go to school and be with my friends, but after a relatively dramatic breakup with my boyfriend at the time, I did not want to go back to school. I was hiding from the fact that I was going to need to step out of my role of this person's girlfriend and find my own identity as a single female teenager. Just like every other teenager, we all had to go through things like this. Roger explains Erikson's theory as a developmental process that each human travels through, and during the journey there's stages that one must work through in order to have positive development. Psychosocial development is broken up into 8 different stages of the life cycle. Each stage has a developmental process or task that we must work through in order to gain and process new information. Failing to work through Erikson's crisis may result in difficulties later in life. The adolescent stage is the 5th stage, the identity versus identity confusion stage. The teens must learn who they are in society and incorporate their roles into their own sense of self. This is a very vulnerable stage for any teen, let alone one who is feeling the economic pressures at home and the health pressures during daily life. Problems that occur or developmental roadblocks that can lead to psychosocial development failure with these obese low SES teens. First of all, bullying. Jansen et al. Did a study in 2004 with regards to adolescence and bullying. They found that both physical and verbal bullying occurred significantly more often, with a positive correlation directly to BMI in females ages 11 through 16. Though there was a positive correlation in males also, the results were not as significant until they turned about 15 or 16. Jansen found that these results also correlated to negative thoughts of self-image and self-worth. Rogers states that suicide is the 4th leading cause of adolescent death. Because this is the case and overweight adolescents are being bullied, there are that in a low SES with many times less of a support system, suicide in this population is a large concern. During the identity versus identity confusion stage, another roadblock that could appear with the adolescents is family itself. As Escarce found, adolescents in a low SES household had a lack of constructive parental guidance. This was due to lack of understanding due to lower intelligence level, and also lack of physically being in the home because of economic obligations. These adolescents in the study were found to be involved in more negative activities such as teen drinking and smoking. Popular media. There's a huge influence on our children and adolescents regarding weight. Every time you turn on the television, there's conflicting images of having to either say super skinny, too skinny, especially in Caucasian women, versus the images of women who are overweight who are portrayed as beautiful for being overweight. Teens have a difficult enough time setting their own identity without having to have conflicting messages on every commercial during every time they turn on the TV. Having readily available fast foods and junk foods at every corner, and healthy foods being difficult to get. Placement is everything. If we just put salad bars and healthy stores where every fast food restaurant is, you don't think that people would change their behaviors? Also, we even glamorize, and I dare to say worship, junk food. There's even a board game out now that you're supposed to name as many logos, which is usually fast food logos, as you can before the other teams. The conflicting messages that we give our children and teens is ultimately going to aid in the failure during this stage and frustration to lead to negative sense of identity. It's time we fight back. As social workers, we need to take up these children who are vulnerable and lift them to be healthy and successful. From a generalist social work program, or as Roger states, the person and environment practice, social workers can use the adolescent's immediate settings to start creating positive programs and treatments. The generalist social work approach is one that views the person you are working with in an environmental perspective. They're a product of their environment. Because of this, working to understand and even change the environment that they live in, both on a very small scale up to a national scale, is important, especially in teens who are very susceptible to negative outlooks, like obese, low SES teens. The most immediate system, or the microsystem, is where a social worker would assess and look up things like working on personal motivation and having parental encouragement for teens that are overweight. You could get children to pull out pictures of media that have good things about fitness and about healthy foods. You could also have them write down goals and things that they want to accomplish to get to these goals. This could also mean having the mother or father sign up for a fun run with their teen or a fun walk even. On the meso level, which is the next level of person and environment approach, we would look at the next, step or section of society which is affecting them. These are things like extended families and their peers would be focused here. Ways that a social worker could help a low SES obese teen in this level are getting things like extended family involved in something. I know a lot of families have family reunions every year. Encourage them to play games or bring healthy foods instead. Getting involved in programs at school. Having the school use the Let's Move campaign. Things of that nature. Also look at community setup. As a social worker, I'd want to give the family tips on new places to shop that may be healthier, finding little places, and then they can use that to, be more connected with their children. Look at community outreach, getting better sidewalks, or looking at cleaning up the local parks. On a macro level, this is the level that the adolescent is less involved in and more a product of. We need to work as a society towards a more positive portrayal of beauty. We need, role models who are active and fit, not the obsession with supermodels or unrealistic goals and violence, things of that nature. Programs like Let's Move, which we will see a quick video on in a second, and WIC, which are important for health education and better food choices, especially for at-risk children and adolescents. School and community-based programs. We need to encourage and educate these at-risk teens who are obese and low SES to use the resources that are available. Things like WIC, which is Women, Infant, and Children, working towards better food availability and just making sure that families who do need the food and don't have the money to get it are able to. After-school programs. Almost every school in every city has some sort of after-school program. Summer camps, working on trying to get grants that children who don't have a lot of money can go to, things like YMCA and church camps. Also, at a lot of community places, they have community focus groups. And the new thing that they've just started in Texas and Great Britain and Australia is called standing desks. This is to get children active and moving around. In school, we sit the entire time. This, especially in Great Britain and Australia, has shown to increase energy and productivity. It's when instead of sitting at a desk, you're standing up. Michelle Obama, the First Lady, started a program in 2010 that encourages people throughout the history to become a more active and healthy through education and positivity. The program focuses on national awareness for higher quality school foods, increased physical activity, and positive life changes. With the celebration of the 5th anniversary of the Let's Move program, the nation has seen many positive results from the various campaigns.
Before coming to the White House, the president and I lived lives like most families. 2 working parents. I was busy trying to maintain some balance, picking kids up from school, trying to get things done at work, just too busy, not enough time. And what I found myself doing was probably making up for it and being unable to cook a good meal for my kids. Going to fast food a little more than I'd like, ordering pizza, and I started to see the effects on my family, particularly my kids. It got to the point where our pediatrician basically said, you may want to make some changes. So started making those changes, short, easy changes, but they led to some really good results. So I wanted to bring the lessons that I learned to the White House. This led to our new initiative, Let's Move. Let's Move is a nationwide initiative that basically focuses on 4 key components. First, we want to improve the information and the tools that parents need to make the changes that are desired in their families. The second is that we have to improve the quality of food in our schools. That's where kids are eating many of their meals, and we have to do a better job of making sure that that food is quality. Third, we need to improve access and affordability of healthy foods. We have to eliminate food deserts in this country, and we need to do it now. And finally, we have to increase physical education for our kids. We need to get them moving. And we're going to be relying a lot on major sports organizations to help us achieve that goal. And we're very excited about that. Let's Move is going to take families out of their isolation and give them the nationwide support that they need in a whole range of industries to get their kids on track to live healthier lives, to eat right, to get more exercise, and to be ready to face the challenges of the future.
Positive outcomes. Using these programs and lifestyle changes will ultimately bring about positive outcomes, both in the immediate setting and also nation and worldwide. A healthier future for our children. In general, we want to be here. We want to live longer. Technology is allowing us to. Why don't we keep our health so that we can do that? Lower healthcare bills. Kids that are obese, they go to the hospital more. They get sick more. There's issues like asthma. If you're healthy and you're fit, you have a much more likely to be able to, get through the winter without those colds and things like that. Closer family connection. Family that plays together stays together. So let's, try and keep our families together. Health-friendly neighborhoods. Just making sure that, you have things like sidewalks and you're able to play, parks and things like that. Lower rates of depression, which is wonderful, especially for adolescents and teens who are going through, such a vulnerable time anyway. And teen programs that focus on positive activities. That was my program. Thank you very much.